Good morning, children. Welcome back to the online class of Sri Kogulam Public School, Vattagara.
Dear children, good morning. I hope all of you are fine. Okay, can we start our class? Okay, we can start today's class with a great thought of APJ Abdul Kalam, the missile man of India. Okay, relations are like electric currents. Wrong connection will give you shocks throughout your life, but the right ones will light up your life. So children, you have to make good relations only. Listen. Okay. Then did you remember? Then last or the previous days, we started a new lesson from history part. What is that? Okay. Yes, tribals, Dikus and the vision of a golden age. And did you remember who were tribals? Yes, the tribals, they were the people lived in the hilly or forest areas. And Dikus means the outsiders. And what did we discuss in the previous class? Okay, we discussed about one of the famous leader of the tribal community, Birsa Munta. And how did the tribals earn their livelihood? And the 2 points we discussed the previous class. They earned their livelihood by doing the shifting cultivation. And some others, they were hunter-gatherers. They hunted the animals and gathered the foods and earned the livelihood. And today we want to discuss. Then they herded the animals and reared the animals and earned their livelihood, and they did the settled cultivation also. The next part, what were the troubles faced by the tribal chiefs and the shifting cultivators under the colonial rule? These 4 parts we want to discuss today's class. Listen, and first we can see that. Listen, how did some of the tribals, they herded or reared the animals? They were the pastoralists. Then they moved from place to place along with the herds of cattle and sheep. Listen, according to the season. Because when they were used the grass continuously, that caused for exhausting the grass of the particular area. So, in search of grass to feed the animals, they move from place to place. Example of such like tribal communities. Then Van Gujas of the Punjab hills and Labadis of Andhra Pradesh, they were cattle herders. Listen, then the Gadis of Kulu, they were the shepherds, and Bagarwals of Kashmir, they read the gods. These were some of the examples of the tribal. They earned their livelihood through rearing and herding the animals. Did you clear? Please see this chart. What did we discuss now? Then the tribals, they earned their livelihood through herding and rearing the animals. Clear? Now, we can start the other way of earning their livelihood. Some of them, they did the settled cultivation. Before 19th century, these tribal communities, they started the settled cultivation. And they began to use the plow to prepare the soil. They used the plow, and that time then they got the rights over the land. When they did the cultivation continuously in one place or one areas of land, gradually they got the right over this land. And the land belonged to the clan as a whole. Instead of giving the right of the land to one individual, the rights of the land that was given to the clan or the family as a whole. Then next, all members of the clan, They were regarded as the descendants of the original settlers. Okay, they were regarded as the descendants of the original settlers. All the members of this clan, they had right over this land. Gradually, some of the people, they acquired more power than others, and they became the chiefs, and others became the followers of the chiefs, or they became the tenants. Clear? Then powerful men, they were not ready to do the cultivation in their own land. Instead of that, they rented the land to the others, and the tenants, they did the cultivation in that land. But the British, they believed that these shifting cultivators, or the people, they moved from place to place, they were like the savages, or they were not civilized. They thought that the gods and sandals communities, they did the settled cultivation, and they were more civilized than that of the nomads, or the people, they moved from one place to another place. Clear? Then the British officials, they considered the forest people as wild and savage, and they needed to be settled and civilized. Please see this chart. How did they do the settled cultivation? Clear? Okay, the main points. First of all, they started to settle in a permanent place and did the cultivation in one place year after year, and then they got the right over this land. Understood? We can discuss how did the colonial rule affect the life of these tribals. The colonial rule that affected the life of the tribal chiefs as well as the shifting cultivators. And before the arrival of the colonial government in India, then the tribal chiefs, they enjoyed more power. Listen, they had more economic power, as well as they did the administration and controlled the territories. In some places, they appointed their own police forces and decided on the local rules of land, and they managed the forest areas. No one restricted them to do like these activities. Okay, we can see what happened to the tribal chiefs after the arrival of the British. Clear? Then under British rule, these tribal chiefs, their power reduced considerably, and they were allowed to keep their land titles over a cluster of villages, over a group of villages. These tribal chiefs, they got the titles or to be as a chief, then and had the right to rent out the lands. But then they lost their power, administrative power. Even though they got the right of the cluster of villages or became as the chief of the cluster of villages, then they lost their administrative power. Administration that was done by the British. Clear? And they were forced to obey the laws passed by the British government in India. The tribal chiefs also wanted to follow the laws passed by the British in India, and they had to pay the tribute or the revenue to the British, and they wanted to discipline the tribals on behalf of the British. And they lost the authority, they lost the power, they were unable to fulfill their traditional functions. The tribal chiefs were not able to continue the traditional functions. Then please see this chart. Then first showing, then before the arrival of the colonial government in India, what type of the powers were enjoyed by the tribal chiefs, and after the arrival, what happened to them. Okay, please go through this chart. Now we can discuss then how did the colonial rule affect the shifting cultivation. The British, they were uncomfortable with the shifting cultivation. Why? Because they didn't get the regular source of income when the people were doing the shifting cultivation. So they did not allow the forest people to do the shifting cultivation. They were not able to measure the lands and to impose the revenue when the people were doing the shifting cultivation. And the settled peasants, they were easier to control and administer than these nomads or the shifting cultivators. The British government, they were easy to look after the administration when the people were settled in a permanent place. Clear? Then, so they wanted a regular sources of revenue also. That is why they prohibited the shifting cultivation. And they introduced the land settlements that we discussed in the previous lesson. They introduced certain type of the revenue system, that is with the purpose of getting the regular sources of the income. And some peasants, they were declared as the landowners and others were declared as the tenants. And the tenants wanted to pay rent to the landowners, and the landowners, they wanted to pay rent to whom? To the state or the British government. But in some areas it was not possible for the British to avoid the or to ban the shifting cultivation, because in some areas the cultivators, they faced a lot of troubles. They didn't get the sufficient products from their land. Because of the dry climate, the soil became so dry. Listen, and then faced the scarcity of the water. So they were not able to cultivate the sufficient products from the particular area. And they wanted to move to other place to do the cultivation. Then, so they organized protest against the British decision of banning the shifting cultivation. Especially in Northeast India, they organized the protest movement, and ultimately the British government was forced to allow them to continue the shifting cultivation in that areas. Please see that why the shifting cultivation was not good for the British and why did they ban the shifting cultivation. Did you clear? I hope all of you understood. Okay, then once again please go through this video class and read the textbook thoroughly and prepare the notes. I will send the questions along with this video class. Don't forget that. I hope all of you completed the notes up to where we completed the lesson. Clear? Thank you.